Chata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lezek vivina lehevkim bein yom uvein laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani betzalmo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokar al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamachem etzedei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shatzali kortzor ki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozi Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam otei Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten la'ev koach.
Amen.
Please be seated.
Baruch atah Utenenu hayom uvachol yom lechein ul hesed rakamim beinecha uveneko roenu v'tzignol hasadim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai gomel chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael. Le'olam yedei Ribok. Aval mitecha Adat Yaakov. Ashreinu matov chelkeinu umanaim goraleinu afayiru shetenu. Ashreinu she'anaknu mashkimim umarivim erev avoker ve'omrim pemayim bechol yom Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Kadesh et shimcha makdeshei shemecha vekadesh et shimcha melomecha uvishuatecha tzareng v'tag b'yakranenu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh et shimcha barabim.
Beginning on page 107, we have an opportunity to study a passage of Torah. Afterwards, we'll say Kaddish de Rabbanan.
Yehi ratzon melefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu shetiten chelkeinu b'toratecha v'niyim mitamidav shel Aharon Kohen ohev shalom v'radev shalom ohev riotum korvan la Torah.
Kaddish de Rabbanan is on page 111. Mourners and those observing a yortzeit, please rise.
Yit kadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divra kirutei ve'amlik malchutei v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kari ve'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'alam ulalmei almaya. Yit barak v'yishtabach v'yit pa'ar v'yit romam v'yit naseh v'yit hadar v'yit alei v'yit halal shemei dekudesha barichu. Ve'elam min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma ve'imru amen. Al Yisrael ve'al Rabbanan ve'al Talmidechon ve'al kol Talmidei Talmidechon ve'al kol man da'askim be'oraita di ve'atra hadain ve'di be'kol atar va'atar yehei lochon uchon shlama rabba hina v'chizda v'rachamin v'chayin arichin unzona revicha umforkana mikodam avuhon devishmaya ve'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim tovim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Osei shalom romav u'barachamav ya'asei shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Hayom Yom Shabbat Kodesh.
We're on page 112.
Mizmor Shir Yom Shabbat Tov Lehodon Leishim. Horinum b'seivad shenim ra'imiyu lehagid ki ashar Adonai tzriva lo avlatapo.
We continue together on page 120.
Mizmor asher hanukat habed David armim kakilatani. Zarim kasi David kocho kira gabru. Ha fakta mispirim lecholi patakta saki v'razreni simcha leman izguva v'lo yidom Adonai Elohai leolam odecha.
The Mourner's Kaddish is on page 121. Once again, mourners and those observing a yort site, please rise.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divra kirute ve'amlik malchute v'chayechon uvyamechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael Ba'agala uvizman kari ve'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olalmei almaya. Yitbarak v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu. Ve'elam min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma ve'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Usei shalom b'mromav, hu yasei shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen.
If you're able to do so, please rise. We're continued together on page 122 with Pesukei de Zimra.
Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu, Baruch osei bereshit, v'meosei, Baruch zukayem Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam ha'el ha'av ha'rucham v'fiyam ha'lishma. Yahidchei ha'olamim melech mushbacham v'rei shemo hagadol. Baruch atah Adonai melech mehulal v'tishbachot.
Please be seated, page 123.
Odu la'Adonai k'dim nishma v'shmo. Zero, you said it. Ki kol Elohei ha'amim elim v'Adonai shamayim asa. Hod v'adad l'fanav Yismechu hashamayim v'tagil ha'aretz Nakito k'ilum hasdo Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lahakodsho Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu V'hu rachum yakaper v'vol yashchit v'hirbal sheplo v'mato Adonai Tzivaot Hashem Moteach Bach Adonai Hoshia Melech Yaneinu Ve'yom Koreinu Hoshia et Amecha Uvarech et Nachalatecha Urem, 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 Urem V'nasem Urem V'nasem Ad HaOlam Hoshia et Amecha Uvarech et nachalatecha Urem, 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 Urem V'nasem Ad HaOlam Nafshenu hitzal Adonai Tzoniyu Va'ani b'chazdaka b'takti Akel v'yishuatecha Ashira la Adonai ki gamal alai.
Once again, please rise. We continue on page 132.
Odu la Adonai ki tov ki leolam chasdo. Odu leElohei haElohim ki leolam hasdo. Odu la Adonai Adonim ki leolam hasdo. Leosei orim gedolim ki leolam chasdo. Et hashemesh lemem shelet bayom ki leolam hasdo. Et hayareach v'kochavim lemem shelo b'layla. Lemolich hamo b'midbar ki leolam chasdo. Lemakei melachim gedolim ki leolam hasdo. Vayaharog melachim adilim ki leolam hasdo. Venatan artzam lachala ki leolam chasdo. Nachala leYisrael avdo ki leolam hasdo. Nai 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 ki leolam hasdo. Noten lechem lecho basar ki leolam hasdo. Hodu le'el hashamayim ki leolam hasdo. Nai 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 ki leolam hasdo.
Please be seated. We continue on page 136 with Ashrei.
Ashrei yoshvei beitecha od yanelucha sela. Ashrei shechachalo, Ashrei shadonai Elohav tehila leDavid. Aromim chai Elohai hamelech rasham lelev labekom yon v'chek hamasham. Adarki b'tadek. Tehilat Adonai berpi v'varech b'sar Shem kodsho le'olam va'ed v'anachnu nevarech ya me'ata ve'ad olam. Hallelujah.
141.
Hallelujah, 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 el bekodsho, hallelujah, berkiyahuzo, hallelujah, bigvurotav, hallelujah, kerov gudlo, hallelujah, 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 beteka shofar, hallelujah, beneva vechinor, hallelujah, betofu machol, hallelujah, bemenim vehugav, hallelujah, 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 betziltzalei shama, hallelujah, betziltzalei truah, hallelujah, betziltzalei shama, hallelujah, betziltzalei truah, hallelujah, 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 kol hashema tehallelujah, hallelujah.
Please rise.
Kol hashema tehallelujah, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen. Baruch Adonai Shken Yerushalayim, hallelujah. Baruch Adonai Elohim Elohei Yisrael, Osei nifla'o levado. Ubaruch Shem kvedo le'olam, v'malei kvedo et kol ha'aretz. Amen ve'amen. Vayevarech David.
Vayevarech David. Yes.
Atahu Adonai ha-Elohim asher b'chartam Avraham ve'oteto mirakazdim v'tata shemo Avraham u'matata levavon eman lefanecha v'karoti merobeti te'eretz v'hayam b'kata lifnehem v'yavaru p'tokom yavasha Ved rodfehem mishrata bimsolot kamo oven b'mayim azim. Vayosha Adonai bayom hahu et Yisrael mitzrayim. Vayar Yisrael mitzrayim nosafat hayam. Vayar Yisrael et hayagron asher asa Adonai b'mitzrayim. Vayiram et Adonai. Vayaminu v'Adonai uv Moshe avdo. Az Yosher Moshe uvanei Yisrael in Hashira zola Adonai ve'imru le'mor Hashira l'Adonai ki gaoga sus v'rokvo rama vayam ozi v'zimraya vayehi lishua ozi Zimraya Vayehi Lishua Ozi Zimraya Vayehi Lishua Ozi Zimraya Vayehi Lishua Ki l'Adonai hamluch ha'mashav goyim v'halmoshim bar Tzionish porei sav v'hayta l'Adonai hamlucha v'haya Adonai l'melech ha'kol ha'aretz b'yom hahu yiyeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
Please be seated. We're on page 145.
Nine 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 Nishmat kol chai Tevarek et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu Baruch HaKol Basar Mimisram go Tanunai Eloheinu Beit Avadim Platanu. Nehalelcha unshebechcha unfa'ercha unvraget shem kodsheka ka'amur leDavid. Marchin nafshi et Adonai v'kol korovai et shem kodsho. Ha'el patatu moruzeka hagedom bikvot shemecha hagibor lenetzach v'nora b'norotecha ha'melech ha'yoshev al kisei ram v'nisa shochein ad marom v'kadosh shemo Yiratu Franenu Tzadikim Adonai, Lai Sharim Navat Tehila, Befi Sharim Tit Alal, Udivrei Tzadikim Tit Barach, Uvishon Chasidim Tit Romam, Uvekerev Kedoshim, Tit Gadash, Uvemachalot Revevot, Amcha Beit Yisrael, Berinayid Pa'ashim Chamakenu Bechol Dor Vador, Sheken Kol Vad Kol Haitzurim Levanecha, Adonai Eloheinu Velohei Avotenu, Lehodot Lehalel Leshabeach, Lefahel Romem Lehader, Nevarech Le'alelu Kales, Akol Divrei Shiro V'Tishbechot, David Ben Yishai, Avdecha Meshichecha, Yishtabak Shimcha, La'ad Malkeinu.
Page 148.
Berachot vehodaot me'ata ve'ad olam baruch ata Adonai el melech gadol b'tishbachot el ha'odot adon ha'niflaot ha'bocher b'shirei zimra melech el chei ha'olamim.
Let us please rise for Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba.
Amen.
Ve'amadi v'rak yirutei ve'amlik malchutei. V'chayechon v'yemechon v'chay dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'vizman kahari ve'imru.
Amen.
Yehi shemei rabba mevorach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarak v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yirma v'yinaseh. V'yitadar v'yitzaleh v'yitalal shemei kedusha. V'vichu le'ela min kol berekata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma ve'imru Amen.
Let us please be seated, page 150.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yizurech shech osei shalom aleinu.
ובורא את הכל למרכז.
Ein kerechecha ve'en zulatecha, efetz pitzecha umidome lach. Ein kerechecha Adonai Eloheinu ba'olam hazeh, ve'en zulatecha malkeinu l'chayei ha'olam haba. Efetz pitzecha goleinu limot ha'mashiach, ve'en dom lecha moshienu lidhiyat ha'metim.
151.
Adon al kol ha'masim baruch umborach b'fi kol neshama godlo v'tuvo malei olam da'at u'tvuna sovevim oto ha'mitkayel chayot ha'kodesh v'nera b'kavod al merkava zechuru mishor lifnei chiso chesed v'rachamim lifnei kevodo Tovim me'orot shebara Elokeinu yitzaram b'dat b'avina uvaskel koach ugvura natan bachem liot moshlim b'kerev tevel mleim ziv u'mefikim noga na'ei zivam b'kol ha'olam sumechim b'tzeitam v'sasim b'voam osim b'heima retzon konam פאר וכבוד נותנים לשמות צולה ורינה לזכר מלכותו קרא לשמש ויזרח רעה והתקין צורת הלבנה שבח נותנים לו כל צבא מרום תפארת וגדולה שרפים ואופנים וחיות הקודש לאל השש רבו מאמצים ביום השביעית עליי
שהוא שבת אל מכל מלאכתו.
שלום השבת טוב
ביום השביעי משבח ואומר מזמור של יום השבת טוב לזאת אדוני לפי כך.
תתברך מושיענו על שבח מעשה ידיך, ועל מרור אשר עשית יפרוך הסלע.
Page 153.
תתברך צורנו מלכנו וגואלנו בורא קדושים.
ישתבח שמך למלכנו.
כולם אהובים, כולם ברורים, כולם גיבורים, וכולם עושים באמה ברצון קונם, וכולם פותחים את פיהם בשב תורה, בשירה וזמרם ברכים ומשבחים, ומפארים ומריצים ומקדישים וממליכים.
את שם האל המלך הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, הקדוש הוא.
וכולם מקבלים עליכם עול מלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש על מנחת רוח, בשפה ברורה מן הקדושה, כולם כחרונים ואומרים ביראה,
קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלך כל הארץ, כבודו.
ואופנים וחיות הקודש, ברעש גדול מנסים לעומת שרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים,
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו.
לאל ברוך נמו איתנו.
אל ברוך נעימות איתנו. בעל מלחמות זורע צדקות, מצמיח ישועות, בורא רפואות.
המחדש בטובו בכל יום תאמין מעשה בראשית. כאמור לעושה אורים גדולים, כי לעולם חסדו. אור חדש ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות.
אמן.
אהבה רבה אהבתנו, אדוני אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה
ויתרה עמלת עלינו.
אבינו מלכנו, בעבור אבותינו, שבטחו בך, אבינו מלכנו. ותלמדם חוקי חיים, כן תכוננו למדנו,
אבינו האב הרחמן, המרחם רחם עלינו.
ותן בליבנו להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע, ללמוד וללמד, לשמור ולעשות, ולקיים את כל דברי
תלמוד תורתך
באהבה. והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות, קוממיות לארצנו. כי אל פועל ישועות אתה, ובאנו בגרת מכל עם ולשון, בקרבתנו לשמך הגדול, סלע באמת. להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה, ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה.
שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו ויאמר משה למלאך.
למען תזכרו זה.
תזכרו בסיבוב. אדוני אלוהינו.
Adonai Elohechem emet emet v'yatziv v'nachom
ויציב אנחנו.
emet Elohei elam לדור ודור הוא קיים ושמו קיים וכיסו נכון ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיים את רב חיים.
ועוד דבריו חיים וקיימים, נאמנים מלך לעמים. We're on page 157.
אמת שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו מלכנו מלך אבותינו גואלנו גואל אבותינו יוצרנו תשועתנו פונים הצילנו מעולם שמך אין אלוהים זולתך עזרת אבותינו אתה הוא מעולם
מגן מושיע לבניהם.
אמת הראשון
158.
תהילות לעליון ברוך הוא ומבורך משה ומרים מבני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נהדר בקודש נורא תהילות עושה פלא שירה חדשה שיר גאולים לשמך שפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Please rise.
צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל ובדקן ומכה יהודה וישראל גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
We continue praying the Amidah beginning on page 159.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim ve'Konei HaKol V'Zocher Chazdei Avot U'Mevi Goel Livnei V'Nechem למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ופוקד ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה
אמן.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע מחכל חיים בחסד מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים סומג נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדומה לך מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים.
נקדש את שמו העולם כשם שמקדישים אותו שמרום ככתוב על יד נביאך וגרז אל זה ואמר
נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום ככתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. מקודש גדול אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול מנסים לעומת סרפים לעומתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. ממקומך מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. תתקדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים ערך לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים ועינינו תראינה מלכותך כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך על ידי דוד משיח צדקך ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהי ציון לדור ודור הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש בשבחך אלוהינו מפינו מושלי עולם ועד כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. ישמח משה.
If you're finished praying the Amidah, you may be seated. We're going to continue with Kaddish Shalem, page 167.
יקרא וגרשם מרבה בעמדי ברקירותי ואמלך מלכותי בחיי חוני ומי חוני וחיי לכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו
אמן. יש מרבה מבורך
להעלם עולם מעל מיה
יתברך
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר עמם ונעשה ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי לקדושה
ברכו
לעילם מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירת בעלמה ואמרו אמן. תתקבץ לו תהון ובאותהון לכל ישראל קודם אבנו ושמיה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
At this time, I would like to call upon Matt and Corey to come up to the bima to present Eli with his talit. Let us please rise as we join Eli and his family in a Shecheyanu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kimanu v'hegianu lazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kimanu v'hegianu lazman hazeh.
Let us please remain standing. We're going to continue on page 168 for the service for taking out the Torah.
Malhut kol amim umemshaltecha bechol dor vador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai imloch leolam vaed. Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Hava rachamim heitiva b'ratzoncha et Zion. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim ki ve'odat Yerushalayim ki v'chad levad batachnu Melech El Ram Venisa Adon Olamin. Vayehi Bisoah Ha'aron Vayomer Moshe Kuma Adonai Ve'afutsu Oivecha Ve'anutsu Mitanecha Mipanecha Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udavar Adonai mirushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, le'amo Yisrael, B'kedushato. Barik Shemei Dimare Alma. Ve'anara hates Ve'lishmei Kadisha Kadisha Yakira Ana Emar Tushbechan Yehe Ra'ava Kodama V'tiftach libi V'oraita V'tashli mishalin Delibi V'liba Dechol Amak Yisrael V'tav Olachain V'lishlam Amen. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Ehad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadol Adonai iti, Unromema Shemo Yachtav. Lecha Hagedula, Hagedura v'Hatiferet, v'Hanetzach v'Haod. Ki kol bashamayim uvaretz, ki kol bashamayim uvaretz. Lecha Adonai hamamlacha ve'amin na'aseh, lechol lerosh romemu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ishtachavu la'adom raglav kadoshu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho, ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu.
Please be seated. You want to use speaker when we begin first? Just kidding. Eli, slow and loud, okay?
Okay.
Slow, so you're already too fast.
Okay. Shabbat Shalom. This Shabbat we read Parashat Bechalotah, which continues to tell us the story of what happened to the children of Israel during their 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. This Torah portion has a couple of scenes that run through it. One of them is the children of Israel complaining to Moses, which actually happens a lot throughout the Torah. The children of Israel were complaining all the time because they were not getting enough food. They were eating manna and were very tired of it. God actually gets offended at the constant complaining and unreasonable requests. God's response was not so great. God burned down the camp that the Israelites were living in. Moses disagreed with God's response to people complaining because he thought it was too harsh. Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch has a very interesting explanation about why the Bnei Israel complained so much. Hirsch's viewpoint to the complaints was that he thinks that the Jewish people are having nostalgia from boredom. He thinks that the Jewish people look at themselves as if they were dead and their lives were worthless. The last thing he said was the Jewish people's complaints come from their need for visions and opportunities. That really means that all those years of traveling and just walking without ever getting where they were going really affected their mentality. This is Rabbi Hirsch's explanation for why they were acting that way. So they were not entirely to blame for complaining. There was also a very famous episode where Aaron and Miriam and Moses' siblings criticized Moses behind his back because of the wife he chose to marry, who according to the Torah was a Cushite woman. From what we know and from what the Torah explains, Cushites actually come from Africa and had very dark skin. Believe it or not, this may be one of the first recorded incidents of racism. Unfortunately, it was Miriam and Aaron who engaged in it. Nahama Leibowitz, who was a brilliant commentator of the Torah who lived in Israel, says that the desire to make a great person small, to blacken the reputation of the famous, to belittle the character of the good person, and minimize any symptom of human greatness is prevalent among the small-minded, those who prey on human weakness, those who themselves fail to achieve any heights of greatness or heroism. And yes, she was saying that Aaron and Miriam were so jealous of Moses' success that they took it out against Moses' wife when they criticized the color of her skin. By the way, God punished Miriam for what she said about Moses' wife by afflicting her with a skin disease so that everybody would know that she had done something reprehensible. The state of her skin reflected how horrible her soul was at the moment she criticized her brother's wife. One thing that we learn from this is that for God, even the great people among us are never exempt from treating other human beings with respect regardless of the color of skin or any other specific characteristics that may define them for who they are. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. That was borderline fast. I didn't want to interrupt you because I didn't want to break your concentration, Eli, but we're going to have to slow down. Okay. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Today, by the way, is the first time in a year, or more than a year, that we are going to a one Gabbai scheme up here in the Bima. We usually have 2 people helping Adam with the reading of the Torah. Today we're going to have 1. Usually, for the last year, we had no one except Adam. So, Adam, please don't make any mistakes. Nah.
I'm good.
Okay.
If you have an aliyah this morning, we ask that you please come up one ahead of yourself. So, for example, Corey and Matt are going to start us off. So Keith and Holly, you're welcome to come and join us on the bima, and so on and so forth throughout the morning.
הברך המרחם ושימש כל בית איתני ויציל נפשותינו מן השעות הרעות ויגר ויצר הרע מן הנשואים ויכון אותנו לפליטת עולמים בימה למשאלותינו במידה טובה ישועה ורחמים.
ויעזור וכל סימבו ונאמר אמן הכל אלוהינו נקובד לתורה יעמדו מתתיהו בן שולמית וברוך וליאת בת אברהם ושרה ראשון ברוך שנתן תורה לאמו ישראל בקדושתו ואתם הרווקים באדוני אלוהיכם חיים כולכם היום.
Our reading this morning of the portion of Beha'alotcha begins on the bottom paragraph of page 821, verse 15.
Adonai Hambarach. Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Ba'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amin. V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Uveyom hakim et hamishkan kisa ha'anan et hamishkan liohel ha'edut. ובערב יהיה על המשכן כמראה אש עד בוקר. כן יהיה תמיד הענן יחסנו מראה אש לילה. ולפני העלות הענן מעל האוהל, ואחרי כן ייסעו בני ישראל. ובמקום אשר ישכון שם הענן, שם יחנו בני ישראל. Al pi Adonai Yisu b'nei Yisrael v'al pi Adonai yachanu kol yemei asher yishkon ha'anan al ha'mishkan yachanu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam notah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen.
We are now continuing with our second portion, which is beginning toward the top of page 822, verse number 19.
Yamdu Davin Yosef ben Saul v'Sharon v'Yael ben Avraham v'Sera Sheni. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamavarach Le'olam Ba'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Uvarich Hanan al Hamishkan Yamim Rabim V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et mishmeret Adonai v'lo yisa'u v'yesh asher yehanan yamim mispar al hamishkan al pi Adonai yachanu v'al pi Adonai yisa'u v'yesh asher yehanan me'erev ad boker v'na'ala ha'anan b'boker v'nasa'u o yomam b'layla V'na'ala he'anan v'nasa'u O yamim o chodesh O yomayim o chodesh o yamim V'ha'arich he'anan al hamishkan lishkon alav yachanu b'nei Yisrael v'lo yisa'u Uv'he'aloto yisa'u al pi Adonai yachanu v'al pi Adonai yisa'u Mishmer Adonai Shamaru al pi Adonai biyad Moshe.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
We're now entering chapter 10 at the bottom of page 822.
Yamdu Benjamin Yehoshua ben Zorak Yaakov Vehudi Saviva ba Yitzhak v'Yeta V'Shmuel Reuben ben Benjamin Yehoshua Vehudi Saviva V'Shoshana Dorit bat Benjamin Yehoshua Vehudi Saviva Shlishi.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai V'rach Le'olam Vahen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayidaber Adonai al Moshe lemor aseh lecha shtei chatzotzrot kesev mikshata seotam v'hayu lecha lemikra ha'edal masada machanot v'taku bahem noadu lecha kol ha'edal petach ohel moed v'im be'achat yikuv noadu lecha hanasiyim rashei alfei Yisrael Udkatem Trua v'nasu machanot hachonim kedma. Udkatem Trua sheni v'nasu machanot hachonim teimana. Trua yikeu l'masehem. Uvhakil et hakahal titkeu v'lo tariu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yamdu Matitiao ben Ronald Vivian Devorah bat Alan Judy Revi'i.
We're continuing with the last sentence of the first paragraph, verse number 8 on 823.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai V'rach Le'olam Vahen.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher baka banu mikol ha'amim v'terei alanu haTorato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Uvnei Aharon haKohanim yiku b'chatzotzrot vayulachem l'chukat olam l'dorotechem v'chitavo milchama bi'artzchem al atzar tzoretchem v'areotem b'chatzotzrot v'izkartem l'fnei Adonai Elohechem v'noshatem me'oivechem uv'yom simchatchem v'moadechem v'rashei chodshechem udkatem b'chatzotzrot al olotechem v'al zivchei shamechem v'hayu lachem l'zikaron lifnei Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'sheyei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yamdu Raphael Nachum Baruch ben Avram v'Miro Yocheved v'Mishpacha Hamishi.
We're now on the last line of page 823.
Baruch hu et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayehi b'shana hasheni b'chodesh hasheni b'esrim b'chodesh nalaha non me'al mishkan ha'edud v'zu b'nei Yisrael u'maseihem midbar Sinai v'yishkon ha'anam midbar Paran v'yisu barishona b'Adonai b'yad Moshe Vayisa degel machane b'nei Yehuda barishona litzivotam. V'al tzva'o Nachshon ben Aminadav. V'al tzva mate b'nei Yisachar Netanel ben Suar. V'al tzva mate b'nei Zvulun Eliav ben Chelon. V'rod b'mishkan v'nasu b'nei Gershon uv'nei Merari. Nazeh b'mishkan v'nasa degel machane Reuven litzivotam. V'al tzva'aho Elitzur ben Shteur. V'al tzva mate b'nei Shimon. Shlumiel ben Tsuri Shaddai. V'al tzva mate b'nei Gad. El Yasaf ben Deuel.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Just a brief interruption. In just a moment, the children are going to be passing around candies for you to hold on to. Just try to keep the wrappers quiet for just a moment. Don't open them up. Just hold them to them tight, and we'll show you why in just a moment.
We're now continuing toward the bottom portion of 824, verse 21.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam
Baruch Adonai
Va'ed.
Barach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'nasu hakatim nosei hamikdash v'ekimu hamishkan ad boam. V'nasa degel machane b'nei Ephraim litzivotam. V'al tzva'o Elishama ben Amihud. V'al tzva mate b'nei Menashe Gamliel ben Pidatzur.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Tamor Shulamit bar Abraham v'mina shvi'i.
We're now about 5 lines from the bottom of page 824, verse number 24. Amen. V'al tzva mate b'nei Binyamin Avidan ben Gidoni. V'nasa degel machane b'nei Dan me'asef l'chol ha'machanot litzivotam. V'al tzva Achiezer ben Amishadai. V'al tzva mate b'nei Asher. Pagiel ben Ochran. V'al tzva mate b'nei Naphtali Achira ben Einan. Ele maseh b'nei Yisrael litzivotam. Vayisau.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nota b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We're now in the middle of 825, verse 29.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayomer Moshe lechova ben Ruel Hamidyani chotein Moshe nosim anachnu el hamakom asher amar Adonai to attain lachem lecha yitanu beitavnu lach yadonai diber tov al Yisrael vayomer elav lo elech ki emel artzi vel omaladati elech. Vayomer anatazo vitanu ki al kenya data chanotenu bamidbar v'hayita lanu le'enayim v'hayakite lechi manu v'haya hatov hahu Asher yetiv Adonai imanu v'heitav nulach. Vayisu mehar Adonai derech shloshet yamim. Varon brit Adonai nosei lifneihem. Derech shloshet yamim atur lahem minucha. Vanan Adonai alehem yomam b'nasam min hamachaneh.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah temet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We now rise for the chanting of the half Kaddish. Yit Gadal, Yit Gadal, Shemei Rabbah, V'yamad Divrach Yerutei V'yamlich Malchutei B'chayechon Uvyomechon Uvchayei Dechol Beit Yisrael Bagala Bagala Uvizman Kariv V'yamiru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'alam Le'amei Amaya Yitbarach Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yipar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitale V'yitala Shemei Dekudesha Richu Li'ehela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata
Damiran Be'alma Ve'imiru. Amen. You may be seated. At this time in our service, we'll be doing a special Misha Berach for those in our community that need healing. What's going to happen is I'll stand in the center of the sanctuary, and if you'd like to mention a name, I ask that you form a line right in front of me and mention your name as you approach. Please keep your side conversations to a minimal during this time, and if you'd like to mention a name, please meet me in the center of the sanctuary. Yamod, 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 Habachur haBar Mitzvah, Eliyahu ben Matitiyahu v'Eliad Maftir Hazak.
We now turn forward for our concluding reading on page 835, the bottom paragraph, verse 14.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Olam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai hamborach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Vayomer Adonai el Moshe va'aviha yarach bifarnecha halo tiklaim shivat yemim tisager shivat yemim michutz lamachane vahar teasef vatisagir Miriam michutz lamachane shivat yemim vaha'am lo nas'a had heasef Miriam Vachar nasu ha'amahatziro vayachanu b'midbar paran. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
May I please ask us to rise? You ready, Eli?
I think it was candy this morning, not rocks. So you're okay. All right. Hold the Torah. Misheberak avotenu Avraham, Yitzhak, v'Yakov, ve'imotenu Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, hu yivarech et Eliyahu ben Mititiyahu ve'Liat, shehiga lemitzvot, ve'ala hayom likvod hamakom, ve'likvod haTorah, ve'likvod haShabbat. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yishmerechu v'chayechu v'chonen libo liot shalem im Adonai Elohav l'hagod b'torato l'lechet b'rachav ולשמור מצוותיו, להיות אמיץ, למצוא את ייעודו, ולהיות בן אדם אוהב ואהוב. ונהו היום ובכל יום לכן ולהסר רחמים בעיניך ובעיני קוראיו, ולשלח ברכה והצלחה מכל מעשה ידיו. יהי רצון שיזכו הוריו, לגודלו, לתורה,
לחופה.
I gotta stand tall. חופה ומעשים טובים ונאמר אמן.
He's already your size, DJ.
He's like already taller than me. So I can't say that.
It's starting to happen. That all of these bar mitzvahs are taller than you and
They're all
me.
taller than me.
Only Rabbi Hudson's taller than the bar mitzvahs now. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless Eli, Eliyahu ben Matityahu Eliat, who has been called to the Torah upon reaching the age of mitzvot, with reverence for God, the Torah, and the Shabbat. May the Holy One protect and sustain him, helping him to be wholehearted in his faith, to study Torah, to fulfill the mitzvot, and to walk in God's ways. May he have the strength to find his calling, to be a person who is both loving and beloved, and may he find love and compassion today and every day in your eyes, and in the eyes of all who see him. May his parents rear him to maturity, guiding him to a love of Torah, to the blessing of Huppah, and to a life of good deeds. And let us say, Amen. Segment tov, mazel tov, mazel tov.
Segment tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, segment tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, segment tov. Yehi lanu, yehi lanu, yehi lanu, uveko Yisrael. Yehi lanu, uveko Yisrael. David melech Yisrael. Chai, chai, v'kayam, David melech Yisrael. Chai, chai, v'kayam, mazel tov. We invite all the children that are here pre-bar mitzvah to please come and help pick up the candy.
And we're going to remain standing for the lifting and binding of the Torah scroll.
Come on, guys.
careful, Joe. There's a lot of kids.
Yeah, no. What flavor do you want?
I like the red ones. Just not the green ones. The green ones are really not nice. יעמדו המחביאה והגולל. וזאת התורה אשר שם משה. Let us please be seated. We can follow the chanting of the Haftarah for Parashat Behalotcha, page 837 of our Chumashim, page 837.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Bin V'im Tovim Varta V'Divrehem HaNe'emarim B'Emet Baruch Atah Adonai HaBocher BaTorah Uv Moshe Avdo Uv Yisrael Amo Uvim V'yeh HaEmet V'Tzedek Roni V'Simhi Batzion Ki Hineni Va V'Shachanti V'Tohech Num Adonai V'Nelvu Goyim Rabim El Adonai Bayom Chachu V'Chayu Li Le'am V'Shachanti V'Tohech V'Yadat Kionai Tzvot Shlechani Elayich V'Nahal Adonai et Yehuda Chelkol al Admat HaKodesh Uvacharod B'Yerushalayim Haskol Basar Mipnei Adonai Kineor Mimon Kodsho Vayareini et Yehoshua HaKohen Hagadol Omeid Lifnei Malak Adonai V'Hasatan Omeid Al Yemino Lesitna Vayomer Adonai El Hasatan Yigar Adonai Bacha Hasatan Yigar Adonai Bacha Habochir Brushalayim Halo Ze Od Mutzal Me'esh Vehoshua Haya Lavush Begodim Toim Veomed Lifnei Hamalach Vayam Vayomer El Haomdim Lefana Lemor Hasiru, Havgodim, Hatsuim, Ma'alav, Vayomer Alav, Ra'eh, He'ervarti, Me'elecha, Avonecha, Ve'obesh, Acha, Machalat, so, Valmar, Yasimu, Tzanif, Tahor, Al Rosho, Vayasimu, Hatanif Hatahor, Al Rosho, Yabayal Vishuhu, Begodim, Omala, Adonai, Omed, Vayad, Mala, Adonai, Behoshua Lemor, Koamar, Adonai Tzva'o, Im Bedrechai, Telek, Vimet Mishmarti, Tishmor, Begam, Ata, Tadin, Et Vaiti, Begam, Tishmor, Et Shatzarai, V'natati lecha malchim bein ha'omdim ha'ele shmana Yehoshua hakohen hagadol ata v'recha hayoshvim lefanecha ki anshe mofet chema ki hinene mevi et abdit sema ki hine ha'even asher natati lifnei Yehoshua alaven achat Shiva Anim, Hinini, Mefateach Petuha, Numadonai, Tzva'o, Umashti, Et Avon, Ha'eret, Chachi Beyom Echad, Bayom Hahu, Numadonai, Tzva'o, Tikaru, Ish L'Reyehu, El Taha, Geffen, Ve'el Tahat Te'enai, Vayashov, Hamalak, Hadover, Bi, Vayreni, Kishasher Yeor Mishnato Vaomer Eli Ma'ata Ro'eh Vamar Rihiti Vihine Menorah Zahav Kula Vegula Al Rosha Vishiv'a Nerotecha Elecha Shiv'a Vishiv'a Mutakot Lenerot Esher Al Rosha Ushnaim Zaitim Elecha Echad Mimin Hagula Vechad Oh Simola Va'an Va'omar El Hamalat Hadover Bi Lemor Ma'ele Adoni Va'am Hamalat Hadover Bi Va'omer Eli Halo Yadata Machema Ele Va'omar Lo Adoni Va'an Va'omer Eli Lemor Zedavar Adonai El Zerubbabel Lemor Lo V'chayu V'lo V'choah Ki'im Baruchi Amar Adonai Tzva'o Miata Har Hagadol Lifnei Zerubbabel Lemishor Ve'otzi Ha'even Harosha Teshuot Hein Hein La Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Tzor Kol HaOlamim Tzadik B'Hol HaDorot Ha'el HaNe'eman HaOmer Ve'oseh HaDober Kayim Shel Kol Devarav Emet V'Tzedek Ne'eman Atachu Adonai Eloheinu V'Ne'emanim Devarecha V'Devar Midvarecha Achor Lo Yashuv Rekam Ki El Melech Ne'eman Rachaman Ata Baruch Ata Adonai
Shemo.
El HaNe'eman B'Chol Devarav
Amen.
Rachem Al Tzion Hihi Beit Chayenu V'La'alu Vat Nefesh Toshia B'Mcherai V'Yamenu Baruch Ata Adonai Mesameach Tzion Bevanecha
Amen.
Samchenu Adonai Eloheinu Be'eliyahu Hanevi Abdecha U'malchut Beit David Mishichecha B'Mcherai Yavu V'Yagel Libeinu Al Kisolo Yashiv Zar V'lo Yinchalu Od Akrim Et Kevodo Ki V'Shem Kod Sheha Nishbatalo Shelo Yichbe Nero Leolam Va'ed Baruch Ata Adonai
Shemo.
Magen David
Amen.
Al HaTorah Va'al HaAvodah Va'al HaNvi'im Va'al Yom HaShabbat Hazeh Shenatata Lanu Adonai Eloheinu Likdusha V'Limnucha Lachavod Ol Tif'aret Al HaKol Adonai Eloheinu Anachnu Modim Lach Umbarchim Otak Yikbrak Shimcha Bifi Kol Hai Tamid Leolam Va'ed Baruch Ata Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat Shabbat Shalom. This is a very special moment for me. I'm the first grandchild on my father's side of the family to become a Bar Mitzvah. That is important to me because that means that I get to become a link on the chain of the tradition of not only my family, but the Jewish people. I know that if my grandfather Barry was here today, he'd be very proud of me. Ever since I can remember, I've been part of Temple Beth Sholom. I've ran up and down every single hall in the temple. I've eaten many pounds of challah from the bima from many Friday nights and Shabbat mornings throughout my life. My family has been a big part of the temple community. My mother taught religious school and kindergarten here, and both my parents have been on the temple board and executive committee. Today is different. Today I get to become a real part of the community at the temple, not because my parents brought me here, but because I'm acquired more responsibilities as I start my journey into adulthood. I'm so proud that I learned how to read from the Torah and led part of the services. Before I started my studies,
So, because we have to understand.
Yeah.
I think that's because I'm Mexican, I can't understand, but it's like slow.
Okay. Okay. Before I started my studies, I really didn't know much about it. Today, I feel like if I go to any other synagogue in the world, I would probably know what is going on. I'm proud to be able to read Hebrew the way I do today. That is very important to me because Hebrew is the language of the Jewish people, and when you are able to pray in Hebrew, it connects with you the thousands of years of history that we have gone through. For my mitzvah project, I chose to be involved with the First Tee organization. It helps unprivileged kids be able to learn and play golf. This is helpful because golf can teach you discipline, focus, and not getting angry. Golf is one of the most impactful sports in the world, and I hope that unprivileged kids can learn this sport and that it makes a difference for them. What I am planning on doing is to collect money donations to give to the First Tee Foundation, and I am planning to make a website page so you can donate money to the organization. One of the things that children are taught through the programs that the First Tee offers that you have to be a good person and strive to do your best even when no one is watching. For me, this is also very much how we are taught to behave by our Jewish tradition. God is watching, and no matter whether we are surrounded by people or alone, we have to strive to observe the mitzvot and be true to the best that God expects us to be. I want to thank Rabbi Goodman, Rabbi Hodson, and the people of the temple at Temple Beth Sholom who have helped me prepare for this day, DJ Sinai and Adam Brewstein. I also want to thank my mother for all her hard work and planning to make this weekend a memorable and happy experience for me, and I thank my father for always being there to help me and answer questions as I prepared for this day. I am also very happy that so many friends and family were able to be here with me today, including both my grandmas here together at the same time. I know many of you made your first trip since the pandemic, and I'm really, really happy you are here to share this with me today. And thank you to all the members of Temple Beth Sholom for the opportunity to be part of this community. Shabbat Shalom.
I'd like to call upon Corey and Matt at this time. Do I have to ask you to go slow and loud? No, okay. You never know. You know, he got to get it from somewhere.
I'm going to apologize. Everybody that knows me, I talk really fast, so I promise to slow down today myself. We want to thank you all for joining us today. Seeing you here will forever be etched in our memory. To our Jewish family and friends, thank you for your support and guidance throughout this process. You know who you are. To our non-Jewish family and friends, we know that you may be your first trip to a synagogue, but you came out of love and support for Eli. Thank you. Eli, you are a miracle, a special gift from God at a time when our family needed a little bit of hope after a tragedy. We were all beyond the moon excited to welcome you into our family. Then to discover that we were having a son brought on an additional level of responsibility, because you are the last namesake of the Saltzman family. You are it. This responsibility took our family on a transformative journey that brought us to Temple Beth Sholom. We knew we had to raise you in a Jewish home so you would embrace your Jewishness. We joined TBS when you were an infant. We enrolled you in the Stan and Sandy Mallon preschool, and through the Adelson School and TBS Religious School, we have made sure you have had a solid Jewish education. We have provided you with a strong Jewish foundation, but ironically, it is you who gave us love and appreciation for being Jewish. Your father had not stepped foot in a synagogue since his own Bar Mitzvah. TBS was as foreign to him as it was to me, but in just 13 years, it now serves as a second home to us because of you. It was you who begged to go to Friday night services so you could give Lilach, Carol, and Miss Voss a big hug. It was you who made sure I packed the Shabbat bags when we traveled. It was you who made sure the Shabbat table was set. It was you who sat in the front row cheering me on when I was bat mitzvahed as an adult. It was you who relied upon the big Hanukkah parties and the big Passover seders. It was you who insisted on going to Camp Ramah. It was you who had Dad at a menu this week. This is all because of you. Stacy summed you up recently when she said, Eli's just so happy. This is how people have described you since you were a toddler. It used to bother me because you're so much more than happiness, but you exude happiness and that makes me proud. Today you are recognized as a man under Jewish law. It is now your duty to continue building upon your own Jewish foundation. I know Rabbi Goodman's sermons the last 2 weeks have impacted you. So as your journey into the teens and young adulthood, you take your big ball of happiness and use it in a way to continue to educate yourself and all others of the importance of respecting, celebrating, remembering history, and defending the Jewish people. We are so proud of you, and you make us happy. Mazel tov. I talk really fast, sorry. Just like him.
You did it. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for coming and joining us for Eli's Bar Mitzvah. We're honored that all of you are here. Eli, you're turning 13, although you look like you could be playing college football. And you just got your first iPhone, so you're really making a quick move into adulthood. Now you're starting your adult Jewish life. You can be part of a minyan, wrap tefillin, and do all of the things that an adult can do in Judaism.
after I had my bar mitzvah, as your mother mentioned, 44 years ago, I wasn't very involved with the synagogue until I met your mother. Ironically, she's the reason why we are so involved with Temple Beth Sholom, and I'm really happy that this is our spiritual home, that you've been able to be part of it since you were a little kid. But as you think about what comes next, I just want to let you know that you have a lot of people in your family who have given a lot of thought to religious faith and how they wanted to practice religion. You've learned about how hard it's been for Jewish people to practice their religion all through history, and we've taught you about how our family has been affected by the Holocaust. But your parents' family history includes stories of people who fled religious persecution and moved to America so they could practice religion the way they wanted to, and these are all of your ancestors. A while back, your granny gave me some fascinating family history that went back for hundreds of years, and what I discovered is that you were descended from people motivated by deep faith. Some of them paid a price for that faith. And I did some additional research, and I found a really famous person in religious history I just want to tell you about. His name was Edward Whiteman, and he lived in England hundreds of years ago, and he used to go around and talk to people about what he believed. But the religious authorities, they had a lot of power, and they got the King of England to condemn Edward for his religious beliefs. There was a big trial. He was found guilty of having the wrong religious beliefs. They did that back then. And even though people tried to pressure Edward to change what he believed to avoid being killed, he refused to change his beliefs. And he's famous today because he was the last person in English history put to death for what they call blasphemy, Edward Whiteman, and he was burned at the stake in the year 1612 because of his religious beliefs. And you are Edward Whiteman's great times 11 grandson. So you see, if you find yourself thinking about what you want to do now that you're considered an adult here, remember that you come from people who have showed real courage because of their religious beliefs. And you're lucky today because one of the important things about Judaism is it's okay to question. Nobody will punish you for how you follow Jewish law. So today in your bar mitzvah, I hope you understand that this is the ending of your have-tos. You've had a lot of have-tos this year, but now you're beginning your want-tos. And I know that you can accomplish anything that you put your mind to, taking advantage of the Jewish learning that you've received. And we love you. We're so happy for you to get to this day.
I'm going to ask us all to please rise. We're going to continue on page 177 with a prayer for our country. We're going to be led in the prayer for our country by Michael Rosenstein, page 177. Oh, you have it? Looks better from the book. Oh, here. Thank you very much.
A prayer for our country. Our God and God of our ancestors, with mercy accept our prayer on behalf of our country and its government. Pour out your blessings upon this land, upon its inhabitants, upon its leaders, its judges, officers, and the public, who faithfully devote themselves to the needs of the public. Help them understand the rules of justice you have decreed, so that peace and security, happiness and freedom will never depart from our land. Adonai, God, whose spirit is in all creatures, we pray that your spirit be awakened within all of the inhabitants of our land. Uproot from our hearts hatred and malice, jealousy and strife. Plant love and companionship, peace and friendship among the many people and the faiths who dwell in our nation. Grant us the knowledge to judge justly, the wisdom to act with compassion, and the understanding and courage to root out poverty from our land. May it be your will that our land be a blessing to all who dwell on earth. And may you cause all peoples to dwell in friendship and freedom. Your cause all peoples to dwell in friendship and freedom speedily fulfill the vision of your prophets. Quote, "Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore." Close quote. For all of them, from the least of them to the greatest, shall know me. And let us say, Amen.
Let us now turn to page 178, a prayer for the state of Israel. Avinu שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו, ברך את מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחת גאולתנו. הגן עליה ועברת חסדך, ופרוס עליה סוכת שלומך, ושלח אורך ואמתך לראשיה, שריה ויועציה. ותקנם בעצה טובה מלפניך. חזק את ידי מגני ארץ קודשנו, והנחילם אלוהינו ישועה, בעטרת ניצחון תיאטרם. ונתת שלום בארץ, בשמחת עולם ליושביה. ונאמר, Amen. We now continue praying Ashrei, which we can find on page 181.
May be seated.
אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יהללוך סלה.
אשרי העם שכחה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו.
תהילה לדוד, ארומימך אלוהי המלך, ואברך שמך לעולם ועד.
בכל יום אברכך, ולעלל שמך לעולם ועד.
גדול אדוני חלה מאוד, ולי גדולתו אין הכר.
דור לדור ישתבח מעשיך, וגבורותיך יגידו.
הדר כבוד הודיך, ודברי נפלאותיך עשיך.
וזוזנותיך יאמרו, וגדולתך אספרנה.
זהיריו טובך יביעו, וצדקתך ירננו.
חנון ברחום אדוני, ערך אפיים וגדול חסד.
טוב אדוני לכל, ורחמן על כל מעשיו.
יודוך לכל מעשיך, וחסידיך יברכוך.
כבוד מלכותך יום ערו, וגבורתך ידברו.
להודיע לבני אדם גבורותיו, וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלת בכל דור ודור.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזוקף לכל הכפופים.
עיני כל אלוהי יסברו, ואתה נותן לחם את אוכלם ואיתו.
פותח את ידיך ומשביע לכל הרצון.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחציד בכל מעשיו.
קרוב אדוני לכל קוראיו, לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
רצון יראיו יעשה, ואת שבתם וישמע ויושיעם.
שומר אדוני כל אוהביו, ואת כל הרשעים ישמיד.
תהילה אדוני ידבר פי, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד.
ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah. Let us please rise, page 183. We're returning the Torah to the ark.
יהללו את שם אדוני, כי נשגב שמו לבדו, הודו על ארץ ושמיים, וירם קרן לעמו. תהילה לכל חסידיו, לבני ישראל עם קרובו. הללויה, הללויה. מזמור לדוד, הבו לאדוני בנעלים,
הבו לאדוני כבוד ועוז,
הבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, השתחוו לאדוני בהדרת קודש, כה אדוני על המים, אל הכבוד הרים אדוני על מים רבים, כל אדוני בכוח, כל אדוני בהדר, כל אדוני שובר ארזים, וישבר אדוני את ארזי הלבנון, ויקידם כמו עגל לבנון וציון כמו בן רמים, כל אדוני קוצת להבות אש, כל אדוני יקיל מדבר, יקיל אדוני מדבר קדש, כל אדוני יכולי איילון, ויכסוף יערות ובכלו כולו מרכבות, אדוני למבול ישב, וישב אדוני מלך לעולם, אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום, ובנו כל יאמר. הלכתו נתתי לכם תורתי אל תעזבו, עצה יפי למחזיקים בה, בתום מאושר
דרכי נוח בכל נתיבותיה שלום. אדוני אליך ונשובה קדש Please be seated.
Shabbat Shalom. A couple weeks ago, William Shatner, the famous Jewish actor who played the original Captain Kirk in Star Trek, turned 90 years old. And it seems that his ego continues to boldly go where no man has gone before. He did a series of interviews, each one more fascinating than the next. In one interview, Mr. Shatner referred to himself as, and I quote, the most pivotal actor of the 1960s. Elsewhere, he noted that the entire Star Trek franchise has always rested on my shoulders. This had the rest of his co-stars refer to him as Captain Jerk. I've always preferred Spock anyway. It turns out that many other celebrities can turn up their arrogance to warp speed. Lady Gaga once said in an interview, "Some people are just born stars. You either have it or you haven't." And I was definitely born a star. Our friend Justin Bieber is quoted as saying, "Don't say I'm not talented. If you haven't noticed, I wasn't made, I was found." And then there is Kanye West, who loves himself so much that I couldn't fit all of his quotes into this sermon, but here are a couple great ones. He says, "For me, I'm a creative genius. There's no other way to put it. I know you're not supposed to say that about yourself, and I say things the wrong way a lot of times, but my intention is always positive." Elsewhere, he said that he's his own favorite rapper. And lastly, "My greatest pain in life is that I will never be able to see myself perform live." In another interview, he compared himself to Tupac, Andy Warhol, and yes, even William Shakespeare. Friends, if people could all love each other half as much as Kanye West loves himself, the world would be a much happier place. But it doesn't stop there. Some celebrities demand that they receive all-star treatment all the time. Legend has it that Jack Nicholson on the set of 1989's Batman had a clause in his contract that prohibited any of the extras from speaking to him while he was on the set. Comedic musician Weird Al Yankovic tells a story that he was once invited to the American Music Awards ceremony, and he found out beforehand that he was going to be seated next to Prince. This is the artist formerly known as Prince. And supposedly the night before the event, he received a telegram from Prince's management company saying that he was not to make eye contact with Prince at all during the ceremony. Apparently, Cher will only perform if her dressing room is equipped with an alcoholic slushy machine, dozens of bottles of chocolate milk, and an entire room devoted exclusively to house her wig collection. Now, I've always wondered how and why celebrities develop these enormous egos. I get it, they're super talented, or at least some of them kind of are. But at the end of the day, we've got to remind them and ourselves that they're just people. I mean, just because you can sing Purple Rain doesn't mean you get to dictate who looks at you. Our Torah portion for the week, it's very interesting because it covers a lot of ground. It begins by talking about the menorah and the tabernacle. It continues with God instructing the Jews how to celebrate Passover. Covers the ceremonial blasting of trumpets, the Jews complaining about the food. Nothing really new there. At one point, God rains down quail from heaven, and then toward the end of the story, Moses' siblings, Aaron and Miriam, speak out against him. They're not happy that Moses' wife, Zipporah, is a Cushite woman. Now, this idea could be a sermon in and of itself, and after all, many rabbis have indeed spoken about it, but I noticed a verse immediately after this whole ordeal that really stuck out to me like a sore thumb. It's not very long, the verse isn't exactly poetic, but it really got me thinking. It's from Numbers chapter 12, verse 3. It says, "Now Moses was a very humble man, more so than any other man on earth." Okay, that's not so odd. Moses is God's appointed prophet. We're told that in this parsha. So why am I so focused on this particular verse? Moses is humble. Okay. Well, I think the reason that this verse is so interesting is because according to classical Jewish tradition, Moses is the one who wrote the Torah. Meaning that for many Jews and many people, they believe that Moses wrote this verse himself. About himself. If this is true, then it means we should radically have a new opinion of Moshe. Because how humble are you really if you write about how humble you are? Can you imagine writing this about yourself? Can you imagine if Eli had spoken in his Bar Mitzvah speech and said, "Now Eli was humble, more humble than any other Bar Mitzvah boy on the planet"? That would have a different reaction from all of us. It's really hard to make a compliment about yourself and have it be effective. If I said, "Now Rabbi Hodson was a good rabbi, more so than any other rabbi on the earth. He was so great, you can't make eye contact with him. And he wants tacos behind the bima and a whole room for his comic book collection." If I said that, it would have a different reaction. I think what is troublesome about Moses' humility is, do we really want our religious leaders to think about themselves this way? It always makes me really uncomfortable when I see pictures or videos of people kissing the Pope's hand. I don't like it when I watch videos of Orthodox Jews trailing behind their Rebbe or clamoring on top of each other to get a look at a famous rabbi's grave. Because those men were just people. Moses, even though he was God's divine prophet, he was still just a person. If Moses wrote the Torah, according to classical Jewish tradition, there's also another problem. At the very end of the Torah, in Deuteronomy, in chapter 34, the Torah describes Moses' death. So how is it possible that Moses could have written this if he was dead? Well, the sages of the Talmud give two very interesting answers. They say, number one, that it was Joshua who finished the final chapter of the book. Okay. Or that Moses himself writes these words with tears in his eyes. And perhaps that is really the way it went all down. Moses writes about how humble he is in the book of Numbers, but at the end of Deuteronomy, God really shows Moses what it means to have humility, to write an account of his own death. Every morning when we pray together, we read aloud that God humbles the arrogant. And I think that this is true. Time after time, it seems that people who claim to be amazing or superior, even the best there ever was, it turns out that they're not great enough to escape their own fate. Muhammad Ali used to claim all the time, "I am the greatest, I am the best." He said that he could fly like the butterfly, sting like the bee, but notice he's not doing that much anymore. Our bodies eventually fail us. Our achievements in this world eventually will be lost. All the money that we made will be dispersed. And really, only God will know how we behaved on this earth. Only God will know if we were humble or if we were arrogant. I wanted to finish this sermon by giving you all some quotes from celebrities that are humble, but actually these were really hard to find. It seems that our society doesn't print headlines about how humble or down to earth our celebrities are. I guess that headline doesn't sell a lot of scandal magazines. So I've decided to do instead a very rabbi thing, and I want to leave you with a verse from Pirkei Avot. It says, "Do not seek greatness for yourself, and do not covet honor. Practice more than you learn." I'm sure that if the Torah had left out the verse about Moses' humility, I would have thought of him as extremely humble, but now I'm not so sure. Never make people guess whether you're humble or not. Show them through your actions. If you're truly great, you'll never have to tell anyone because they'll know. Be kind, seek justice and love mercy, and please never demand an entire room just for your wig collection. Shabbat Shalom.
We're going to continue now with the Chatzi Kaddish for Musaf, which can be found on page 184 of our Sidurim.
Do you agree with the tacos behind the bima? Should we do it? Could we tacos?
I don't want to say anything because then I'm going to say I'm not humble.
You can be humble and still like tacos.
You can be humble and still like tacos. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah ve'alma divra kirutei ve'amlik malchutei b'chayechon v'mechon u'v'chay dechol Beit Yisrael ba'agala u'vizman kari ve'imru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam olal me'al maya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yinam v'yinaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei kudusha barichu le'ela min kol brakata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran me'alma v'imru Amen.
We continue praying the Amidah for Musaf for Shabbat, page 185. Let us
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzhak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol v'Zocher Chazdei Avot U'Mevi Goel Livnei V'Nechem Le'Ma'an Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Ufoked U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Abraham Ufoked Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei Metim Atah Rav Lehoshia Mechakel Chaim Bechesed מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומק נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מכמוך בעל גבורות, ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים.
אמן. נצחה ונקדישך כיוסף הקודש, המקדישים שמך בקודש. כך כתוב על נביאך וכרז אל זה ואמר.
נעריצך ונקדישך כסוד שיח שרפי קודש, המקדישים שמך בקודש, כך כתוב על יד נביאך וכרז אל זה ואמר. קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. כבודו מלא עולם, משרתיו שואלים זה לזה איה, מקום כבודו לאומתם ברוך יאמרו, לאומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. ממקומו הוא יפה ברחמים ויחונם, עם יחד עם שמו ערב ובוקר, בכל יום תמיד פעמיים באהבה, שמע אומרים, שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו, שני לעיני כל חי. נאי 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 להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור, הללויה, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גוד לך ולנצח, נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. אמן.
If you finish praying the Amidah, you may be seated. Kaddish Shalem is on page 203.
יקרא וגרשם מרבה, בעלמא דברה קידותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכוני ומכוני וחייתכו בישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ומרו. אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך, והעלם עולל מעלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי קודשתה, בריחו לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירת מעלמה ואמרו. Amen. Titkabal Slotahona Vautahona Ko Yisrael, Kodabahona Vishamaya Vimru. Amen. Yehe Shalom Arabamin Shamaya, Vechahim Alena Veal Kol Yisrael Vimru. Amen. O say Shalom Imromav. Huya say Shalom Alena Veal Kol Yisrael Vimru.
Amen. En Keloheinu, page 204.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemochenu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Eloheinu, Mi Adonenu, Mi Kemochenu, Mi Kemoshienu.
Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu.
Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu,
Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu.
Atahu Eloheinu,
Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu,
Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shitiru, Avotenu, Lefanecha,
Et Ketoret Asamim. At this time, I would like to call upon Elliot Blut, member of our board of directors, for presentations to Eli.
Sure. Eli, Mazel Tov, great job. What was nice also was to see your parents looking up at you during the service. That was nice. So, on behalf of the board of directors, first we have the certificate of Bar Mitzvah, so you'll be able to take this with you. On behalf of the Women's League,
Chumash.
Chumash. From the Women's League, oh, it does say that there. I should have my glasses on. And the Kiddush Cup from the Men's Club. So Mazel Tov, maybe use all of these. I don't know about the certificate you can use, but the Chumash and the Kiddush Cup, maybe use as often as you can.
I'd like to call upon Eli Mann for a presentation on behalf of USY.
Mazel Tov, Eli. Mazel Tov, Eli, you did an amazing job today. And I wanted to present to you this USY Havdalah candle, and which we hope you light every Saturday night or Sunday, which I know you do when you go to religious school. And you continue to light it as you get older. Congratulations. Mazel Tov.
Here, I'll put them over here. So Eli, I have a couple of thoughts to share with you this morning, and I hope that you remember at least a little bit of what I say to you today. I hope that in the years to come, some of these words really help you when life, is not as easy and as breezy as it is right now. Your Torah portion is a very special Torah portion because there's a story at the beginning and at the end that serve like book holders to all of the content that it has. It begins by the commandment to light the menorah in the tabernacle, and it ends with the story that you spoke about where Aaron and Miriam engaged in horrible slander against Moses' wife because she is black. Now, it's a shameful thing to have something like that in the Torah. We have to agree. But if we look past it for a second, and you look at the role that Miriam played and the role that Aaron played, there's something to really be understood from this. Miriam was really the instigator. Remember, and God afflicts her with sarat. God gives her this horrible sickness for saying what she said about Moses' wife. But Aaron escapes without anything happening to him. Now, and this reminds us, by the way, of what happens with the golden calf. Remember the golden calf? Remember who built the golden calf? Aaron. Thousands of people die, and nothing happens to Aaron. Yet, the Jewish tradition tells us that Aaron was a rodef shalom. He was a pursuer of peace. Now, there's something that doesn't add up, Eli, because on one hand, you have, the guy building the golden calf, speaking with Moses' wife, and he's a pursuer of peace. Well, I think that part of our tradition judges Aaron in a very unusual way. He just, he was like a Nebuch. He was just there. And he was just trying to escape the circumstances. He was going with the flow, right? He builds the golden calf not to be killed himself. He agrees with Miriam not to get into trouble with his sister. And is that really pursuing peace? No. So I think that there's two ways to pursue peace in this life. One, like Aaron, just, go with the flow, don't cause any problems. You know the joke, right, that I used to tell, I love to tell. There's two Jews that are going to be shot by a firing squad in Europe during the First World War. They're arrested. They're part of the French army and they got by the German army. And as they're about to shoot them, they say to them, "What are your last words?" And one of them says, "I want to remove the hood that I have over me. I want to see my executioners." And the other guy says, "Shh, don't make trouble." So this is Aaron, right? Don't make trouble. You don't bring peace into the world like that. Yes, you survive, but ultimately you don't change anything. And if there's something that you have to learn as a bar mitzvah, Eli, is that it's in your power and in your hands and within your soul to change the world. Today, you go on a journey where I hope, and we all hope, that you get to be the one to change the world forever. But you cannot do it by just going with the flow. It's impossible. Look, we know so many examples around us. Look at Israel. So many times in its history, in its young history, to pursue peace. I mean, nobody's going to accuse us of not wanting peace, right? Every single prayer we pray is about peace. Ose shalom mimromav. 20 times, 30 times. But sometimes to get that peace, we have to go defend ourselves. Sometimes to get that peace, we cannot just go with the flow. And we're going to do things that are controversial, but that actually elevate the human spirit ultimately. And that brings us to the beginning of your Torah portion, the kindling of the lights of the Chanukiah. If you want to be a light unto the world, Eli, if you want to fill the world with light when it's engulfed by darkness, you cannot just go with the flow. If you want to be the one that raises people up, if you want to be the one that empowers people, if you want to be the one that helps the needy, you can't just go with the flow. Light up the world, Eli. Do it because you can, because you want to. And by the way, the one thing I really admire about you, your luck. I have to say, you are a very lucky guy for many reasons. Of course, you have the parents you have. You live the life that you live. When you break a foot and Rabbi Hudson goes up to you and says, "Did you hurt yourself?" You go, "No, I'm just resting." And then we find out you have 3 fractures, right? I want to have your luck, right? Nothing hurts, nothing bothers you. You win the Nintendo, you win the Xbox every time we have a raffle. The Talmud says, "Akol talui b'mazal." Everything depends on luck. Afilu haSefer Torah shebeichal. Even the scroll of the Torah in the ark. Meaning, which Torah scroll are we going to read from? The one that gets lucky. So mazal is an important factor in life. And trust me, you were born under a star. You have mazal. Use it well. Use it wisely. Light of the world, end the darkness. Not because you happen to be there, but because you make yourself be there. Look, you understand a very important rule in life. You cannot win a raffle if you don't buy a ticket. You've bought the tickets. So be at all the raffles and make the world change, Eli. Make the world move forward. May your life as a bar mitzvah that now begins be something that inspires us all in the years ahead. Nothing that you do should be just because it happened. Everything you do should be because you want it so, and you want it so that everyone can live a better life, including you. Mazel tov to you and to your family. May this be the beginning of even more luck in your life, of more blessings in your life, and of course, of lighting up the world with kindness. Mazel tov, Eli. May I please ask us to rise? May God guard you and keep you. May God cause His light to shine upon your life all the days going forward. May He take you up on His wings and show you peace, now and always. Amen. Mazel tov. Let us now please remain standing. We continue with, please, don't forget it. We're going to continue praying Aleinu. Page 205.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latei gedula leotze bereshit, shelo atzanu kli aratzot, velo samanu k'mishpechot hadama, shelo samcha k'nukachem, v'gor aleinu k'kol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachatim modim, nifnei melech malachei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, she'el teshumayim ve'rosada. Okay, Nicholson. Kargatu b'toratzecha, Adonai lo le'olam va'ed, v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad,
U'shemo Echad. Let us please be seated. Mourners and those serving your side, remain standing for the mourners Kaddish, page 207.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'almad divra kirutei ve'amlik malchutei, v'chayechon uvyamechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kari ve'imru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lameh u'maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei kudesha b'richu ve'elam min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran ve'alma ve'imru Amen. Yehi shlama Rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru Amen.
Amen.
Say shalom and romav. Say shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru
Amen.
Amen.
I'd like to call upon Elliot Blut once again for the announcements.
Shabbat Shalom. Mazel Tov again to Eli and his family. Join us tomorrow and this Monday in the Steinberg Chapel for morning minyan at 9 a.m. and Tuesday through Friday at 7:30 a.m. Friday, June 11, there will be a community-wide dinner on the outside back patio, burgers, hot dogs, and more. Before the dinner at 6 p.m., our youngest members.
What's more? I
You're
don't know.
going to have to come.
I'm going to have to be here, right? Okay. Good.
Yeah. Before dinner at 6 p.m., our youngest members are invited to dress up for Pirate and Princess Shabbat. Of course, the rabbi will also be dressing up as
I'm going to be a pirate, DJ's going to be a princess.
Perfect.
Right? That's what he said last night. I'm not making up, right? Okay.
I heard that. Of course, regular services are at 7:30 p.m., and if you want, you can dress up as well. On Friday, June 4 at 6:30 p.m., there is a USY Kadima Shabbat dinner for paid-up USY and Kadima members. On Sunday, June 6 at 11:30 a.m., USY presents pool party at DJ's house for current USY members, RSVP to DJ. Temple office will be closed on Monday. Please join us for Kiddush following services in the large social hall, sponsored by Corey and Matthew Saltzman. in honor of Eli becoming a Bar Mitzvah. If you know of a temple member who is in the hospital, ill at home, or in a nursing home, please contact the temple office to let us know. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. By the way, Pirate and Prince to Shabbat is Rabbi Hudson's brainchild. So if somebody's made to walk the plank, don't blame me. You go to Rabbi Hudson. It's all his fault. We're going to conclude our service on page 211 with Adon Olam, followed by Kiddush. By the way, in a year and since February, we haven't had as many people here in the synagogue. We're very, very happy to see everyone. It's really a wonderful feeling. I mean, we've been going up and up and up and up and up. Now it looks like 3 times what we had for Yom Kippur.
Yes.
So it's really unbelievable. Adon Olam, page 211.
Adon Olam, Hashem Malach, B'terem kol do-do-do-do, L'tzir nivra, ding-dong, Leit nasa, V'hefsakol, smash,
Azai melech shemo nikra Adon Olam,
Ve'acharei
ככלות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא אדון עולם.
והוא היה, והוא הווה, והוא יהיה בתפארה
אדון עולם.
אדון עולם, אשר מלך.
בטרם כל יציר נברא, בעת נשא, בהפסקו, אזי מלך
שמו נקרא אדון עולם, והוא אחד ואין שני, לעם שלו להכבירה אדון עולם, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה אדון עולם, אדון עולם, אשר מלך בטרם כל לציר נברא, בעת נשא והפסקול, סמש אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם, והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי בעת צרה
אדון עולם.
והוא ניסי
ומנוס לי,
מנקוסי ביום אקרא
אדון עולם.
אדון עולם,
אשר מלך
בטרם כל לציר נברא, לעת נשא והפסקול, סמש
אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם.
בידו הפקיד רוחי, ועת תישן ואירה אדון עולם, ועם רוחי
גוויעתי,
אדוני לי ולא אירה
אדון עולם.
אדון עולם,
אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא, דינג דונג.
לעת נשא והפסקול, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל
את השבת,
לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל הוציא לעולם, כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבה ויהי נפש. על כן ברך אדוני את יום השבת וקדשהו.
חיים. Amen. And here comes Finn.
All right, go ahead and give it a cut. Yeah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. Adonai Yos lemoiten, Adonai yavarech et amo shalom. Shabbat shalom mevorach v'mazal tov to Eli and his family.
That's a speaker.